Hello, everybody. This is the Airsoft Mechanics Podcast. This is episode 11, I believe. It's been a long time since we recorded one of these, but since the summer hit, Ryan and I both wanted to start doing them again because reasons, and we enjoy it, and other people enjoy it too, and we can get even cooler and cooler guests now because we have more and more connections. And so because of our connections, we were able to get ASTkilo23 or 23, however the lingo is managed, otherwise known as Andrew Sales. So that is our guest today.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Alright, so we have a generalized outline for this, but as the usual listeners know, we kind of don't stick to it as always, and I guess people kind of like that more anyway because it's much more fluid. So our primary topic for today is the main topic is tech burnout, like how to avoid it. And by tech burnout, we mean like working on guns so much, and airsoft burnout as well, playing airsoft so much this burns you out to where you don't want to play anymore.
Mm-hmm. So, do we want to start? I know, so we have that, and then we have some side topics. Again, like Ryan said, it's very fluid. We'll usually start talking about something within that topic and kind of go off on a tangent. And then I know Ryan also posted on the AirsoftTech and Q&A Facebook page, and there was at least 2 or 3 questions people have already asked in that. So I'm sure we will scroll through that post and just start listing off answers if it's something that people are commenting to.
We've already got I think it's 15 or so comments. So
yeah, so we'll go through that as well.
All right, so
yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say I think it's 4 questions and 30 comments. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, a lot of it is just us and Alex Fong going back and forth, and then there's 4 or 5 questions scattered throughout.
All right, so I'm just gonna straight up ask you, Andrew, how do you avoid airsoft and teching burnout? Because I think you've been doing this a lot longer than either of us have. You've been playing airsoft a lot longer than either Ryan and I have.
Yeah, I've been airsoft.
I know I've seen your videos when I was just starting off, so you were definitely here a little longer.
I think I posted my first video 10 years ago, so it's been a while, but I really haven't airsofted, real airsofted that entire time. Me and a few guys, we got our guns our nicer guns about 7 or 8 years ago. So I've probably got about maybe 6 or 7 years of real teching under my belt. But to try and answer your question, how to avoid burnout, to be honest, I've thought about this for the past couple of days pretty intensely, and from what I can tell, you got to be your own boss, BYOB, pretty much.
Bring your own BBs. No, I'm just kidding.
Bring your own BBs.
There you go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I always hated those guys that didn't bring their own BBs, and they expected you to kind of hook them up with BBs. So that was usually when I got rid of my .12s or .20s.
There are people like that where you play. It's expect random people just to...
No, friends that I'll play with, they'll just show up.
Oh, friends,
guns,
okay,
they won't have BBs.
Friends, yeah, I can get that.
I thought you were showing up at the field and random people coming up to you. Yo, I ran out of BBs today. You're gonna pile them in there. I just take half yours.
Just pick some BBs off the ground. Here you go. No, but what Andrew was saying was being your own boss. Yeah, that's pretty much how I've been able to do it. I've been playing airsoft for probably 6 or 7 years and teching for roughly 5. So I do this on a day-to-day basis. I have 5 or 6 customer guns right now in my room, and one of them is actually Alex Fong's gun. It's a pink combat machine. It's a 60 RPS DSG, but
the nerd couldn't work on his own guns.
I was messaging him, and he was like, I can't do flat hop. I was like,
there's this great thing called a modified flat hopper. It's literally drop in. So yes, you can be your own hop up.
Just in case.
But
I only said that because I think I actually might be sending Ryan 2 of my guns. I was talking to Andrew Ryan earlier. I have about 8 or 9 guns that are in pieces in my room right now, waiting to be worked on. I just don't see myself having enough time to go through all of them. So I might be offloading some of the work so I can actually get it all done this summer.
Well, I heard there's this fantastic store called Airsplat that do very good... No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, really? Are they still around?
Yeah, they got bought out by Hobbytron, I think.
Oh, okay.
Right next to the other devil.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, to touch on that a little more, being your own boss, like I've worked at 2 airsoft companies where I had to do tech work under other people or take orders, and it's just I worked at Surplus in Woodinville, Washington, for it wasn't a very long stay, like 4 months, because honestly, the guy I had to work under, just I didn't like the guy, didn't get along at all, and just having to take orders from him was just impossible. So I just couldn't deal with that at all.
I definitely understand that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I bet.
So I ended up leaving there. I haven't had to work under anyone yet. I've been airsoft in terms of the teching. For me, it's been a lot more like personally well weighted as opposed to customer base weighted. And in that sense, I will work on my personal guns and guns of close friends where I can do my own internal testing on them, and I'll use them to kind of test ideas or theories or new parts and things like that. And then secondary to that, every once in a while, I will take in.
Your friends are your guinea pigs. Got it. Okay.
A little bit. Well, I compensate them with free work though, so I gotta get some sort of gain from it, whether it's knowledge or if I'm not taking their money, I might as well get some knowledge out of it.
No, that's not a bad idea.
But then all my customer builds will kind of come secondary, not in terms of the time I spend on it, but in terms of I will more actively go out and do my own build before I accept customer build, even if it's for money. That's just who I've always been. Airsoft teching has been more of a personal hobby as opposed to a way for me to make money, and that's just the way I've gone about it.
It's not a very good method of making money. I'll be dead honest. I mean, most builds I do, I charge, I would say, an average amount, maybe $40, $45, $50 sometimes.
Yeah, I charge double of
that. Yeah, so it depends. But if it's a DSG build, I'm like 100, 120, somewhere in there.
Oh, that's so generous. I charge $200 flat for DSG builds because I just like doing them for people. People ask for the craziest builds up here, and I'm like, if I'm going to do it for you, I'm going to make my time worth it.
Look at it like seriously. This. One of us is a nursing student with a background in EMS, and the other one is an engineering student. So
one of us is very precious.
You got me there.
But it's not even a good medium of making money, I don't think, because there are so many other things you could do to make much better money. It's more or less just for the fun of it and kind of like some side money. So I don't spend money in Airsoft unless I earn it through Airsoft.
That's a good system to have.
Yeah, exactly. It prevents me from overspending on my other.
I wish I had that system.
I'll be honest, I try to keep in that system, but it just doesn't work. The gun's called to me, I swear.
It's too tempting sometimes.
But I think by far the best thing to do to avoid teching burnout is to just have other relatively non-expensive hobbies. So playing Xbox or reading or writing or having another job, I think is probably one of the best things to do. Because if you're doing that other job, you're more than likely going to want to be playing Airsoft or thinking about that kind of thing. So that's usually how I manage teching burnout.
There's two sides to that. There's playing Airsoft, and then there's burning out on teching.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think I'll ever get burnt out on actually playing Airsoft, but I can definitely. I've definitely had my times where I've gotten really just tired of teching anyone's guns except mine, of course. And it really helps just being able to pick and choose what clients you take on or what you work on, whether it be your own guns or a couple friends' guns or what. So just being able to pick and choose what you do really helps a lot.
Yeah, I've had clients where they're so there are several different types of customers you can have for Airsoft. One of them is super laid back, and they're like, yeah, just take the gun, get it working, and it doesn't need to be done for several months. And you're just like, oh, okay, this will be easy, plenty of time to finish it and all that stuff. And then you get those guys who are like, I will give you $500 if you can get it working in a week. It's just okay, and it kind of hits you out of nowhere. Now, I've had both those customers and anything in between. I've had customers where they'll send me a check in the mail, separate from the gun, and then they'll want to verify that the gun got here and then that the check got here, and then they'll want to verify that I shipped the gun before I cashed the check and all this stuff. I've had customers like that before. And I mean, it's completely fair, it's their gun and all, but you can have really paranoid customers and then you can have really chill customers. And if you have a bunch of paranoid customers, it really makes me anxious because there's just so much going on and I don't want to deal with it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that
just
contributes.
to get back on the whole burnout thing. I know for me, as more of a general issue, not necessarily focusing on airsoft teching. If I sit down and I do something for a really, really long period of time, like consistently, the way my mind works with things, where my interest comes from, if there is room for me to advance and get better, or there is knowledge for me to gain, those are the two driving factors. So for me, example, I've played soccer my whole life since I was about 5 years old. I've played at a Division I, extremely competitive level. I played all throughout high school. I was recruited to high school to play, and I had opportunities to play in college too, and I turned it down for other reasons. But for me, there was always room for me. It was constant competition. I was constantly advancing and moving up and playing better, and there was always. I was never satisfied with soccer. I could always get better, and there's always better people to play against. So in that form, I always had something else to accomplish. And that was for me for a long time with airsoft teching, especially when I first got into it, is that for a very long time, there was more information for me to gain, there was more for me to accomplish, there was always a clear level of people that were higher up than I was in terms of just experience or their involvement in the community or and simply like their knowledge and like how their product is, their end result, their builds, the performance that comes out of it. And then after a while for teching though, is that I started to get into higher and higher kind of ranks, I'll call it, of the people in the community. And I did get burned out a while ago, actually. Before I went to college, I couldn't. I text so much, I got so sick of it. Even my own guns, I just didn't want to do it. And it wasn't necessarily like detested it. I wasn't like, you, airsoft teching. It was more like I was like, oh well, I can tech, or I can go play video games. And like 9 times out of 10, all of a sudden I would normally choose teching, and I stopped doing that. Or if I was like, oh, I can go hang out with friends, I was just doing that more often and pushing teching on later and later. And it got to the point where I didn't do it nearly as often anymore. And for me, that was just because I had done it so often. I needed to take a break from it and then allow the scene to evolve a little bit, and then it would give me new things to accomplish and new things that I had to go back and now learn and catch up on and do. So I know I picked up, I started to learn about computers actually. So I used to know absolutely nothing about computers, and I was always a little fascinated by them. So very similarly to how I got into airsoft teching, where it was something I was interested in, and I just hopped on forums, hopped on the internet, started teaching myself. I did the same with computers. I just hopped on forums, hopped on YouTube, started to read and learn and teach myself, and that was my new interest for a while. And that started to absorb my time. And then after a while of doing that, I kind of got back into airsoft because I give myself enough like free time where I was no longer sick of it, and there were new things out. I know at the time actually it was when Gate was releasing their Titan, and they were looking for beta testers, and I was selected as one of the originally there was only 2. It was me and Jordan over at Umbrella Armories that were the U.S. beta testers for Gate, and like that was my catalyst to get back at airsoft. So that was my extremely long, convoluted way of saying that eventually you will get burnt out if you do something too much and you run out of things to keep you interested. But at least for me, I took a break, I focused on something else, and then I went back to it, and then I was fine.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Ryan.
Yeah, just being able to take a break for a while from something and just step away and do something else that's kind of either interesting or mind-numbing, and just kind of get back to airsoft teching, whether it be 20 minutes later or 6 months later. It doesn't matter. It really helps.
See, the biggest problem with that, I guess this is more of a than Andrew and I and Ryan, is that like in addition to doing tech work, in addition to playing airsoft, we also manage and try to grow our YouTube channels. And YouTube subscribers like to see a constant flow of videos and media put out, whether it's in form of a podcast like this or in the form of like a 5-minute tech tip video or like a 30-minute shimming guide. Like they constantly want to see output because that constant output gives people something to look forward to, gives them a schedule. People like schedules, so they're more likely to subscribe to you and watch you again, yada yada. But like doing that, it makes you burn out yourself. And so, like, not only do I burn out from airsoft teching, not only do I burn out from playing airsoft, but I also burn out from making airsoft content. And, like, that sounds kind of silly, but if you think about it, it's identical to airsoft teching. It's just another facet of teching that you can also burn yourself out on.
Definitely. I know with my YouTube channel, I've got almost 400 videos up right now, and it's taken 10 years to do that. It's a lot of work. And I've almost made that into another hobby, just photography and videography in general, just to give myself something else to do in that kind of. So.
No, your pictures of cats are
work editing. Yeah, I've got 2 cats, and they are the most energetic, photogenic cats I've ever had. And just be able to take something out of that that YouTube channel aspect, like I run a Sony Alpha 6000 camera. And it's super fun to be able to take that on hikes and completely take that skill set from shooting airsoft videos and go put that into photography and do something totally different with it and turn it into a totally new hobby.
Yeah, that's one of my other purchases I need to make. Is a really nice just picture-taking camera, because I have I have a GoPro, I have another action camera, and then I have my camcorder that I use for my YouTube videos, and like I don't have that actual picture-taking camera. So whenever I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see like really awesome pictures by my friends or by Andrew, and I see like I see a picture of a cat, or I see a picture of just like a beautiful like mountain scenery, I'm just like, gosh darn it, I want a camera too.
It's worth it, dude. Every penny.
It looks like it.
But like once you get that camera, I swear you're gonna get another lens, a couple lenses, flash, memory card, all kinds of stuff. So
and the next thing you know, you're taking it apart and installing a DSG.
3 frames per second. Can you get your camera up to?
How to jewel creep cameras.
Jewel creep. I actually had someone was emailing me the other day about. I haven't told Jacob yet. I was holding it from him. The person he's trying to 3D print and then CNC prototype triple sector gears, and he was emailing me about sending me one and having me test it out and look at it. And I was so close to emailing Jacob, and then I didn't.
Oh my gosh, is some guy actually like CNCing those?
Yeah, he's trying to. He's working on the CAD right now. He's like keeping me updated with it. He wants to send me one.
You know, he probably let theirs.
I mean, I explained the whole thing to him, and I was like, it's super impractical unless you're trying for just as fast semi-auto response without going HPA as possible. And he's like, oh, I know, it's just going to be cool. And I was like, all right, as long as you understand that I support you, I'll help you out. I just won't want to get your hopes up and then be disappointed later.
But like there's a post on Airsoft forum where it's like explaining the TSG, and like for the first page and a half, people are like, yeah, this could be cool. And then like the actual techs get involved in that group, and they're
like, shut it down.
like, guys, this is completely impractical. And then you get like a 100-page kind of thread where it goes on forever between like noobs arguing with like the extreme techs how to build a TSG. And so the guy sees this TSG post, he's like, oh sweet, there's a CAD file, and he reads the first page and that's it, and he goes with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I was talking to this guy about. I was like, I gave him not the 100-page version, but the really quick rundown of, while it probably is possible to make, it's extremely impractical for these reasons. And then I was like, however, I was like, as long as you understand this and you still want to do it more for the cool factor, just to test it and have fun, then by all means, go for it. And I'll let you send me one, and I'll give you any feedback or like help you want on it. But I was like, as long as you understand that you're not just going to install this, put in an M190 spring, and get 120 rounds per second. That's not how it works. But
I mean, like, if you could get around the tappet plate issue, and then you installed it into an SR25 gearbox shell with like a spaced MS210 spring, then you might be able to get past 250. But like FPS, not RPS.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But like beyond that, you're just.
Well, the issue with the tappet plate is that you even had a kid post about this in Q&A a week ago. Is that it happens at DSGs too. Once you get above 75, 80 RPS, I haven't found a solution to keep the gun feeding BBs. With the way that we have mechanical tappet plates right now. Because you had the kid who posted his 101 RPS according to the BTC software, and I was like, yeah, we've been making these for like 6 years now, but none of them feed. This isn't like, it's cool that you've been able to do this and you didn't know was like a not a common thing, but like an achievable thing. But even you have to use the BTC software to get you 101 because it doesn't feed. So I was like, it's awesome, but like this really doesn't mean anything, and here's why. So as long as you like start scaling it back, and maybe you'll get down to like 72 before it starts to feed, And that was funny too, because people were responding to my comment. Well, but if I bake my mag springs in space, I'm like, no, the mag spring is the problem. It's the tappet plate is the problem.
Yeah, like, I mean, so the problem with systems like mechanical systems, and Ryan, you probably learned about this in engineering, and you probably knew about it way beforehand. But like, whenever you speed a system up, you increase the margin of it. Like you basically decrease the level of error that you can have. So like,
well, you increase the percent chance error, because it's kind of like if you're calculating percent error in a system, it honestly depends on the system, but there's a set of equations you can apply to it. And the way the equations work is that they're multivariable equations, and each variable represents a part of the system. So let's say the tappet plate can flex with an error of 5.2%, and then the spring on the tappet plate, the force it resets with, because it deteriorates as you use it, has an error of 2.5%, et cetera, et cetera. And you have all these mechanical pieces with their own internal errors corresponding to their function. And then to have the error of the whole system, it is essentially an equation that multiplies all these individual errors together. Yeah. And then it's not just like x times y times z. Like, it'll be different. Like, for example, it might be like square root of x over x prime squared plus y prime squared over et cetera, et cetera, et cetera for each variable. But as you increase the speed, and you increase, for example, with tappet plates, the flex and the tappet plate, that increases the error, and that they're all directly related. So, like, this is the more, not super specific, but the explanation to why, as you increase the, I don't want to say the chaos of the system, but maybe like the stress of the system is a simpler way of explaining it, so people might understand. The percent chance error goes up for each individual piece, which makes the percent chance error of the whole system go up as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so what people aren't realizing with this setup is that, like, the higher you crank that RPS up to, the quicker that everything deteriorates at that rate. So like 100 rounds a second, that kind of system, I guarantee he's almost already broken his tappet plate spring or something ridiculous, you know? And that's just because of what we're dealing with here. I mean, like, if we had something like the systemic air nozzle design, we might be able to get around that. But even then, if we got around that, we would have to get around the fact that you'd have to increase the strength of your mid-cap magazines, and then from there, you might increase them so much where you offset the nozzle, and it's just like so many issues that can possibly occur that
you would need to re-engineer the system to adapt it to what you're trying to do. It's kind of like you're taking essentially a 12, 14-year-old mechanical design and trying to stress it to the max with performances that it was never imagined to be able to achieve. So while you have adaptions like the dual sector gear that allows you to do it, you're still using other stock components, like the stock tappet plate we keep going back to.
Yeah.
So kind of the bottom line is, don't do it.
Yeah, that's a simple answer.
Yeah, but just, like, this is basically how you avoid tech burnout here. Is you do exactly what Ryan and I are doing. You just continue to, like, make up these theoretical scenarios where it will never happen, but it gets you entertained and it gets you pacing and excited, but then you realize it'll never happen, so... You know.
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea. I've only done a couple of DSG builds. I should stay away from this and not get burnt out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you do a DSG build, and then you open up a JG, like a stock JG. You're
like, oh, what is this? This is no fun.
Yeah, you're like, wait a second. My DSG build is like 6 of these rifles combined in cost. So,
like, shoot.
Damn. Yeah, that was me at one point. I kept just trying to build new, like, higher performance guns to keep me interested. I have 4 DSGs that are all broken and not working in my room right now, waiting to be fixed.
But did you? I don't know. If, that reminds me. I have 2 DSG builds. One of them works flawlessly. The other one doesn't work at all. I'm DSGing an RDP and the Echo on RDP, and it's gonna be great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Andrew has a bunch of those. He took a bunch of pictures of them the other day. At least
I got one actually. A buddy of mine picked up I think a bunch of boneyard ones from Brian from Echo One a while back. So I had 4. He's still got I think 2, and he sold 1 to a buddy. So I still got 4 sitting around, but I just got 1 myself.
You should start DSG one. That's like a great platform.
You know, I'd love to. I got this guy Ryan Dion. He's working on some parts for it. We're trying to get an MP5 mag adapter for it. So I'm looking forward to that. Then we can actually do some real DSG.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. We're just trying to figure out fitment. I know he's working on a rail for the top right now. Stock adapter a while back, and it's just the coolest looking gun right now.
Yeah, I looked at the stock adapter and I saw it on Shapeways, and I was like, "No, that's really neat." And I looked at the price tag, and I can't remember what it was, but I was like, "Oh, that's not something I want to pay for."
And it's like I want to say like 30 or 35 shipped. It's not terrible. You really got to be pretty loyal to your RDP to really invest into it, but I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasted so much money on pointless attachments at this point, though. Oh my god.
Wasn't that all of Airsoft spending money on?
That's all it is. It's just buying more
50%
stuff.
of Airsoft is a fashion show, and the other 50% is your gun working.
I would argue that like 75% is a fashion show for some people.
No, that's true. I'll show
Myself included. No, I'm just kidding.
And then I'll have like a DSG, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
Well,
I wish
to
it was
kind
that
of
simple.
Well, we
Really
were talking about getting burnt out earlier in different customers we had. I'm curious to both of you guys, what's the worst or most annoying or awful customer you've ever had?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Oh man. Okay.
This is
you
a
can
real
go
good
first,
one.
Ryan.
Okay.
If you have one on mind.
So I've probably had more customer work than Brian has, but that's just because
Yeah. No, you definitely have. You definitely have.
Yeah. But like, okay, so I've probably worked on 100, 120 different builds, and like this is anywhere between like stock JG, tune up, bushing install, and like SHS piston, and then it goes anywhere from that to like 600 FPS DMR and a real sword SVD. So worst customer experience I've ever had was a guy who sent me, let's see here. Oh yeah, it was a Lancer Tactical M4, but it had one of those silver GMP bodies on it. And so it had a silver GMP body on it, had a Lancer Tactical gearbox set up, and then it had, like, everything else on it was like this crap plastic, like crap-tastic plastic. And so he sent that to me, and he was like, yeah, it's a stock Lancer Tactical with this GMP body, I just need it working well. And I was like, alright, fair enough. So I opened the gun up, and it has like this modified set of gears, or like, well, I can't remember, maybe it was like, what's this other brand? It's really crappy. But I don't know, it was like some really odd gear brand, like where the gears didn't mesh at all. It had like these 7mm junk bearings. It had like one of those really, really like odd neon green S&T pistons or SRC pistons. And it had like some really junky motor as well. And I was like, okay, fine. I got it all working. It sounded really rough because of the gear meshing. And it was like, it was decent, but then like they had this like gearbox misalignment issues. And then I look at the barrel that he sent with it, and it's a gas blowback barrel. So like, it wouldn't work at all. Like I was like, no, this doesn't work at all. So then I messaged the dude, and I was like, hey, you sent a gas blowback barrel. Can I put one of my barrels in it and just send it back to you? And he said, yeah, sure. And then like a couple days later, I got the gun done. It was ready to go, ready to ship. I message him. He doesn't respond for a week. I message him again. Doesn't respond for a whole month. Message him again. Doesn't respond for 3 months. And then by this time, I'm in like my first semester of college. And then he sends me a message. He's like, hey man, you still got the gun? You ready to ship? And I was like, I've been ready to ship for 4 months now. and so keep in mind, he also already paid me. Like he paid me, I think it was like $45 or $50 for this already. So I wasn't even out anything at all. And then I messaged him back, what's your address? I have yet to receive a response on that, and that was 2 years ago.
Oh, you got a free gun.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
I sent him a message, and I was like I sent him a message, 2.5 months after that, and I was like, dude, if you just don't give me your address, I'm not going to send it back, because I don't know who to send it back to.
I mean, that's just him being stupid, I guess. I would have scored a free gun. I'll take that.
So yeah, this GMP body, I spray painted it black, and I stuck it on my DSG, and it's mine.
It's mine now. It's mine.
Hey, win-win. You got paid, you got a free gun.
The other week, he liked one of my posts on Instagram, which is the weirdest part, and I'm just like, alright.
Whatever. Okey-dokey then.
He probably has lost interest over time. I don't see any other reason why he would just not care about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only explanation, but I mean, I don't personally care. I would have liked to have sent it back because it's his, but if you never ever tell me what to do, then I'm just not going to do it.
Can you do right?
To me.
That's probably my worst.
If Retro Arms, if beta testing for them, they don't count as a customer, then they got a different story. But if they count as a customer, they're probably my worst.
That story alone.
Oh god.
Go for it.
Well, honestly, could. So not counting them, because that's an unconventional customer. My worst, actually, it's not a normal story either, but my worst probably, one of my friends actually, not close friend, but like we play Airsoft together. He had his gun worked on by a local shop, and a week later it broke, and then they refused to fix it for him, saying that it didn't break due to their work, it broke due to him messing it up somehow, and like the piston stripped after a week after he got it, so like it was their fault. But then, so my friend, he's somewhat competent in a gearbox to the point where he knows he can open it up. He can't do too many advanced mods. That's why he had it worked on by the shop. He wanted a better performance out of it. So his gun stopped working. He opened it up. He looked at it, and it turns out the gearbox shell had cracked in half. So I was like, then he sent it to me. He didn't know what was going on. So I was like, all right, I'll fix it for you. It's really easy. Like it was a simple thing. It was just a combat machine gearbox shell. But then I got into the meat of the situation, and I guess this shop had just been completely screwing him over the entire process. So he told me what was supposed to be inside the gun in terms of parts, and like half those parts weren't there. The tuning job was terrible. There were no shims in the gun. The piston was about to strip. They installed the Combat Machine version 2 gearbox as an upgrade gearbox that he paid for, and they took out the stock JG one to do that, which was much stronger. And it ended up cracking. That was the problem. And then if you remember, Ryan, I know I talked to you about it, the old Fubar situation, that shop, this was that shop. So this is what got me to essentially shit on them. And then I posted a review on their page on Facebook. So they were a fairly new shop, so I didn't want to do it at first. But they had, I think, like 4 or 5 like 5-star reviews at the time, like nothing else. And then I just straight up gave them a 1-star review with this giant post about how terrible of a business practice it was. And then of all their other reviews, they're like, it's like 5-star, like the very normal, like average ones, and they had like the 2 likes on it or the 3 likes on it. And then I posted my review, like a week later, it has like 200 likes on it, people that had passed through, and so I was like, oh crap. I was like, what's going on? And then it turned into a huge drama situation where their store owner was probably the most immature person I've ever met, and just like the way he handled the situation was absolutely awful. He acted like a 5-year-old in a temper tantrum, and I had a field day with him. I was just being polite and respectful, but like dark-handed humor kind of on the backside. I was jabbing him throughout the situation, not as a way to get to him, but as more like he was acting obviously unprofessional, and then I responded acting extremely professional, and then just displayed facts essentially of why they did a bad job and why they were wrong and why I was ripping off and all this other stuff. And then it blew up into this huge thing, and the shop ended up essentially the shop was new, and there's not too many airsoft places in my area, so people were scared to kind of talk badly about it, because if it turned out to be one of the only options, they didn't want to be on the shop owner's bad side. However, after my review went up, people stopped becoming scared to talk badly about it. Turns out a lot of people did not like the shop or the shop owner, so it started this huge airsoft drama thing in my area. And since then, the shop has gone out of business because the owner was scamming people. He was treating customers extremely rudely. He had a terrible business practice, and a lot of other things behind the scenes that caused it to go down. But that has probably been my worst experience with the customer, because it literally just started with me accepting tech work and then realizing this guy got completely screwed over and standing up for him, and then it just launched me into like a swamp of issues and drama that I did not plan on getting into.
It was really funny, the whole situation. I think like the morning that it happened, you sent me a link, and like you, Jacob, Corey, we were all talking about it.
Oh yeah,
and like it was just so great, because I woke up one morning and I just read the entire thing, and it was like 60+ comments at this point. And so
it was insane. It blew up. It was just like stupid drama.
Yeah, like I was like eating breakfast and I was reading it, and like the whole time I was laughing, and it was the best thing ever. And like what struck me as like retarded about it was like the shop owner. Okay, so like if you are a good shop and you think of your business as a good business, then you would expect that you wouldn't have bad customers. You wouldn't have bad customer experiences because you're a good business. And so, like, if you have a customer who has an issue with you, you want to resolve it immediately. You want to get them quieted. You want to make them happy. So, like, the best scenario would have been, hey, we're sorry about that. We fired the tech. Here's all the parts in return. Sorry about that kind of thing. That'd be the best case scenario. Ends the drama right there. To this day, the store might still be in business. But because the store was a bad store, the owner was a bad dude, you end up having this scenario where, like, everyone is trying to defend him, and then he just slowly becomes, like, less defensive.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you just can't defend the actions anymore. And so everybody stops commenting, and now it's just this dude and, like, Ryan, Alex, Tristan, and me going at him. And it's kind of like, you have no more arguments, you're just being a bad business owner. And it just got really funny.
Well, because the thing for me is that I agree with everything you said, but that would apply to the first maybe 3 comments of the thread. After that, he just started to be like personal attacks. He was making fun of people making claims. He was changing the story. He was attacking me, and he outright was like, "You're banned from my field. I'm gonna shit talk you to the whole community." Like, I was like, "That's fine. The whole community knows me already. I'm pretty respected here." I was like, it doesn't change anything for me. I play airsoft maybe like once or twice a month because, again, in my state, there's not a lot of places around. There's a very few selection, and I'm very busy. I have other hobbies. I have other interests. I do other things in my life. It's like, this doesn't affect me at all. I was like, I never even went to your field once. Like, it doesn't change my airsoft hobby at all. But he just, he took it to a whole other level. He was acting like a 13-year-old with a temper tantrum. He had a grudge. And the best part was that a year and a half later, he was still talking about it to people. And, like, I found out about this because my friends went to a local op that he happened to be there. And he was still he was still bringing it up in conversation. And, like, I had dropped this, I was like, I dropped this 14 months ago. Like, I don't know what happened. And then, he was just so full of it and so angry and so mad about it. It was such a ridiculous display. And that's why it's like, I just can't forget it. And like the store's out of business now. It doesn't exist anymore. I was like, can't imagine why. But like,
yeah,
damn.
That's.
I mean, my guess is he probably just started this and ended up closing his store, so he probably blames you for it, to be honest.
Oh no, but like he closed the store for completely different. Like he was caught scamming people. He had stolen property. He had taken sales and then not shipped the products. Wolverine Airsoft stopped distributing to him because he refused to pay for their products, for like the stock, after he ordered it and they shipped it to him. There was a laundry list of issues with this guy and ran his business. This was like the cherry on top. And the thing is, he didn't close his store until like a year and a half, 2 years after this situation happened. Maybe like a year and a half after the situation happened. So like the effects and the fallout of this situation had been long gone. It was no longer a factor. It was just in his head. He holds grudges on everything. So he probably had a giant list in his cabinet of people he hates because he either screwed them over or they stood up to him about something. And it was just
coming for a long, long time then.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. And this is like a 48-year-old dude. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous.
That's really sad.
That's pretty good.
I mean, it's part of Airsoft is you're going to get these huge idiots that just don't know when to stop.
And the best part is that I wanted to like him. Like I said, I don't have a lot of fields near me at all. This was another option. It was a pro shop in a field, and I was like, this is great. But he was just such a terrible dude, a terrible business owner. It just ruined the fun for everybody, and like, it was not something I wanted to get myself caught up in.
Oh, that's great. It's just like, I know when like you don't want to be the bad, like you don't want him to think that you're the bad dude. You just want improvement, or you want some sort of retribution for your friend, so something along those lines. And it's just like it turns into like this big personal attack kind of concept. And I've definitely been in those situations, but like very small, minor situations in Airsoft. But this one, like the Fubar Airsoft one for you, was like a huge, big deal. I thought it was it was pretty great. But I know what you're talking about.
I mean, even beyond that, though. So like it reached the point where it was no longer a comment section on a review where I was like arguing the tech was bad. It very quickly changed from that. And if you remember, Ryan, the whole conversation, I kept referring back to all the stuff I laid out. I was like, by the way, the last 20 comments were personal attacks on me. You didn't disprove any of the claims I made about the tech, like the issue here. Like, you immediately switched off of the customer issue and just started to attack me and attack the customer that you cheated. Now, like, this is just terrible. And then let's go somewhere else with it. Oh, and then even later. So remember how I told you I found out like a year later that he was still caught up on it, a year and a half later? I went up to him and I was like, so before this, when I thought the situation had ended, I approached him. I was talking to him. I was like, yo, dude, like, I really don't care about this. I deleted the review on your page, not because I thought it was misrepresentative of your actions, your business model, and your demeanor towards your customers, but more or less because it was causing drama that you are spewing through the community, and it was just, I was being the bigger man. I was like, I'm just gonna take it down. Like, it's not worth it to me. And then he was even, I was like, dude, I don't want any trouble. Like, I don't want any bad blood between us. Like, we're both Airsoft, same community. We should be friends. We shouldn't be hating each other. Like, you've brought this so out of hand. Even though I wasn't even like directing at him, it was just like, it's gotten so out of hand. I was like, doesn't need to be this way, blah, 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 blah. And keep in mind, I'm a 17-year-old kid at this stage. He's 48. And like, I'm being the bigger man and the more mature person. And then he responds to me like an 11-year-old, like, oh no, absolutely not. You're rude. You're terrible. You're banned from my field permanently. I'm banning your teams. I was the head of a team at that point in time. I still am, really, but he's like, banning your team. I don't want to see your face or anything. He was so immature. It was astonishing.
At the same time, as much as I hate those kind of scenarios, because Airsoft is such a small and kind of tight-knit community, especially when it comes down to like fields and stores, because we don't have, I mean, there's like one within an hour from me, and that's a good drive. But like, I don't want to see these businesses fall down, but at the same time, when they do, and it's that spectacular, you can't help but laugh.
Oh yeah.
But so I guess that's the fullest extent of that Foo Bar story.
Oh god, yeah.
I'm not sure whether to talk about a personal client or my experience with Airsplat here.
I kind of want to hear Airsplat just because that sounds fantastic right now.
It's been long enough that I think I can talk about it without anyone getting too pissed off. So,
well, everything on this podcast, or everything that is covered by the First Amendment, is covered on this podcast. So say whatever you want.
No kidding.
Well, whose definition of the First Amendment, though? Apparently, there are new ones now.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. It depends on which side of the aisle you are on. But
Airsplat that I worked for is long gone, and so is anyone that worked there. So I really don't care.
Well, go for it then.
So I don't want to say like 2 or 3 years. I kind of worked via email with their CEO. His name was Kent. You guys probably saw the little reviews I did for them on their page and everything on YouTube. And
I've seen those.
They're pretty old now. I think they're still up on YouTube, actually. Guns and Parts are probably 3 years, and they eventually opened the Airsplat Seattle over here, which, oddly enough, is not in Seattle. It's like actually a half hour past Seattle. But they opened, and about a year later, I finally started saying, can I work here? Maybe see how it goes, get a job. It's like, yeah, sure. On me and my buddy Jeremy. And we started out working weekends there. And we kind of had this understanding. They had they had bought a house, actually. It was about 20 minutes from the store for people who wanted to move from California up to Seattle and kind of work there as well. He gave us the okay to have a couple of rooms there. And so basically we drove from Everett to Seattle, which is about an hour and 20-minute drive. Every weekend. So we went down Saturday morning, we stayed Saturday night, worked Sunday, and then drove back to Everett. It was kind of a weird situation to start out with. And
definitely very unique.
We stayed, and you're going to hear about everywhere. So we both of us worked there about 4 months. Jeremy quit about 2 weeks before I did, which he was the smart one, I'll tell you that. And it was just kind of a weird back and forth between the manager. It was a very poorly managed shop, and we ended up, the manager was the only one living at the house. It was basically, we were staying with our manager. It was really awkward. And it was just, it went to hell really fast. I kind of ended up getting in like an email argument, if you will, with the CEO, and then I just was not on good terms with the manager, and we were staying with him at the same time, so The awkward level continued. This is kind of in a nutshell. This all happened over like 3 or 4 months. And we were trying to get full-time hours, but we still only worked about 15 hours every weekend. From the beginning, they had kind of promised me like a manager or supervisor spot, and that this was not happening at all. Nothing was happening. Nothing they promised was happening, pretty much. So it got to the point where they didn't schedule me for several weekends in a row. They just texted me and said, "Yeah, don't worry about it. We're not too busy." So I think it got to the point where they wanted me to quit, and it just was a really situation all around. But I think that kind of wraps it up in a nutshell there, without writing too much of a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always felt like you have like these 4 big airsoft, like back in the day. You had these, and by back in the day I mean like 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, somewhere in there. You had like these 4 big airsoft retailers. You had Airsoft GI, E-Bike, you had Airsplat, and Airsoft Megastore. And out of those 4, pretty much only Airsoft GI and E-Bike are still alive. And even then, I would say the one that's like truly thriving and not just surviving would be E-Bike. But
yeah,
it makes you really wonder. I mean, like, how bad can management be that like it just completely falls apart like that? As an airsoft store, as one of the only big 4, like in that list that I gave, you would think they'd be like, okay, guys, we're one of the few airsoft stores in the country that actually has the capital and the investments to do this kind of stuff, so we should get our stuff together, But like, so many places could not get it together. And
like
that's really impressive. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, with Airsplat, it wasn't just Airsplat. They had several other names, from what I understand. I don't recall what names the other companies were, but we'd have in stock like these little Chinese doodads that we were supposed to give away with every airsoft purchase. So it wasn't just Airsplat and Airsoft Company. It was the owner had several kind of entities that he operated. So it was
and Airsplat was just one of his.
Exactly. Yeah.
He just got it.
See, I kind of figure that's how a lot of these airsoft businesses stay alive, is that they're part of other conglomerates, because, believe it or not, I would say that a lot of airsoft stores actually don't make much money. I'd say they make enough money.
So I don't look at some. You guys know, like, Air Rattle, for example. You guys know what store that is? Ever heard of that one?
Yeah, I've had the worst experience in the world with them, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, stores like that, like, I have no idea how they stay in business. Airsoft Station is another one where I bought things off them before, and I've had not a good experience, not a bad experience. Like, it's just been a normal interaction over the internet. But like, I never heard of them until they came up in a Google search one day when I like really scrolled through, and that's kind of one of the reasons why Airsoft GI started to drop off. They started to drop off when Tim left as the face of the company.
Yeah,
it's the entire community is so based off of your exposure. That's why e-bike started to surge up. They started doing a lot more videos, more series where they were just sitting down and talking. They were recording gameplay at Ops. They integrated with Jet, who was at the time, I think, the most popular US-based airsoft YouTuber. I want to say, I could be wrong on that, but I believe it's true at the time.
He still is, to my knowledge.
I mean, no, I'm pretty sure he's even more so now, but I think he was like, there weren't many other people to even challenge him. Now, he's still, I think, like, top dog, I want to say, but there are more options. But yeah, it's been, like, e-bike's rise, I wholeheartedly believe, is more based off of e-bike Matt, and kind of what that whole system developed into with their online marketing and the social media platform. But then you have, like, my very first gun I bought was a Well MB03 sniper rifle from Airsplat.
Sorry.
And, like that goes way back. But that was, like, the very first one I bought. And as the only time, I think I've used Airsplat one other time, and that was maybe, like, 7 years ago. And then I got another gun from Airsplat. Or not another gun. I got another, like, BBs or accessories from Airsplat, like, shortly after that. But I never used them again since then. I only heard a bunch of terrible stories and drama and bad shipments and money not being refunded and parts coming broken and just, like, terrible, weird stories.
That's pretty much my experience with Airsplat, too. Like, how I got into working with Kent via email for years was the series of guns I bought from him and how badly it went.
Yeah.
I bought was from Airsplat. It was an MP5 from ICS, and it probably got about 1,000 rounds out of it before it broke after 4 months. Local shop fixed it, and that was that. Probably 6 months later, I decided to buy an ICS M4. So I get their anniversary gun, and probably about a week after I bought it, the thing broke. And so I contacted Airsplat, sent it back, and I said, hey, can I get this other gun? I'd rather grab this. So they sent that to me. And I got it in the box, and it was just, I don't know what happened during shipping, but parts were bent. There were scratches all over the gun. Clearly the gun had come loose during shipping, or just someone didn't do their job at the factory. And so I contacted them. Actually, we're like, yeah, we're not going to refund your money because you did this. And I'm like, no, refund the money. So I sent it back, and I told them, can I just send me another one? Nothing happened for. They eventually refunded my money, and it just was not a pleasant experience. It did not go well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just honestly laughable because it's so avoidable to make those kind of errors. Like, in order to have those kinds of errors, you have to be kind of going out of your way to not please the customer. So, like, if the gun isn't working, or if it's a lemon, you should test it before. You should test all guns before you ship them out. At least put a couple rounds through and make sure the FPS is actually cycling. If it sounds like a screeching banshee, then you should probably try and readjust motor height or do something really quick and basic, and then ship it out. But, like, a lot of those companies, I don't even feel like they did that at all. And I think that's kind of what gave a lot of other companies a leg up, like e-bike and Airsoft GI there for a little bit, because they actually did that little bit of testing. Or
yeah, I was going to say, I remember buying a gun from them, and there was a slip in the box that said it was tested at this FPS, this RPS, by blank, and they signed it. And that was something like Airsoft GI used to be like the go-to company like a long time. Like E-Bike was the much smaller one for a long time, of those being like the big two in the U.S. And then all of a sudden it just completely shifted the opposite way.
Yeah, I think really what gave E-Bike a leg up was that they have a lot nicer storefront, they have a lot better social media platform, and they're friends with people with other channels like Node and Corridor Digital, where like they have that kind of leg up on the competition. And so when they go play Trouble in Terrorist Town with Node, that gets like 2 million views, and that takes people to E-Bike, So
that was another thing too, because I watched Corridor Digital and Freddie Wong and Node, but like separately from Airsoft, and all of a sudden I started seeing like Airsoft videos on their channel. I was like, whoa, let's go, because I watched E-Bike, I watched Jet, and I watched Node, Corridor Digital, and all of them as complete separate entities, and all of a sudden they're doing videos together. But that was one of the things, and like Level Cap Gaming was another one for a while. He got into Airsoft really hard. E-Bike sponsored him right away. Actually, no, or did Airsoft GI sponsor him?
I actually don't know.
One of them did, but I know he did videos with E-Bike, Matt, and Jet, because they would all play together. So even if let's go benefit of the doubt. Even if Airsoft GI was a company that actually sponsored him, I know whenever he made videos, he was making videos with Jet and E-Bike Matt. Yeah. So like that was another thing where he was known for Battlefield 3 gameplay. So anyone in the gamer side of things was now being exposed to Airsoft, with E-Bike being the Airsoft company.
Yeah, whoever was in charge of E-Bike's social media outlets
hit it out of the park.
Yeah, did a really darn good job. Like just a stellar job, I feel. I mean, like they picked the right people to be on on their YouTube videos. They picked the right people to be out there representing their company. I know Ryan from Valley River Arms. He does a lot of stuff with E-Bike.
Yeah, that too. Like he's just another tech. Like I knew him through Airsoft Mechanics and stuff. Then all of a sudden he was working. I realized he was working at E-Bike, and they started putting him on the social media, the videos for YouTube.
Yeah. And like that basically fixes their tech issues, because like you have Matt, who's not a fantastically tech-minded person. He may be great, entertaining, charismatic, and smart on like cars, like that one hobby he has, but he's not good at airsoft teching. And so when they get a question like, what is the fastest DSG you can build reliably, Ryan just hops on the show and he's like, yeah, about 60 RPS is the max. So like it's just really cool that they actually have people that they can throw on there with them.
I did like it in the beginning, because I think Ryan initially, because Ryan just worked at E-Bike, and then I think they were looking for a new editor for their videos, because they realized the social media platform was what was really getting them business, and I guess Ryan also, like, he edits it every time as separate hobbies, so he offered to do it, so they didn't have to hire someone else, but then that is kind of how he got integrated with the videos itself. Is that I believe he became kind of like one of the editors for the videos, and then he just started being featured in some of the videos. And there was one video where they had a lot of tech questions specifically. I remember because like Ryan just started correcting everything Matt said right afterward.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But like that's a good thing because they actually have somebody on that knows what they're talking about. So that's really awesome.
Yeah.
But to go back for a second to touch on like companies like testing guns.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever get any other companies besides Airsoft GI? Did you guys ever get slips from any other companies like E-Vike or Airsplat about what the speed was, who tested it?
I always
just Airsoft GI.
I'm not saying that I didn't, but I don't remember getting them.
I always got slips from GI and E-Vike. I never got anything from Airsplat or Megastore ever.
That was kind of big for me. Like I occasionally got ones from E-Vike. I think it's been long enough, but like Airsoft GI, I used to get them every single gun I bought. I bought quite a few from them.
Mm-hmm. Airsoft GI is where I got most of my stuff actually. And then in recent years, if I bought something, I went to E-Vike or I buy it from. Well, it depends what it is. Like if I'm buying AEG parts, I usually go to different places for that. But if I'm buying like accessories or guns, I'll go to E-Vike now. It used to be GI. I buy a lot of stuff from China. It's cheaper.
Yeah, you gotta be careful sometimes, but yeah.
But I bought a ZV-30 from Echo One from GI, and I think it was the first gun I got that they didn't give a testing slip with. And albeit it was one of their kind of blowout guns, but you kind of expect them to test every gun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I got it. I plugged the battery into the 7.4 LiPo, shot 2 rounds through it, stopped working, just locked up. It turns out the pinion had actually cracked in half and fallen off the shaft.
That's absolutely amazing.
I'm just like, are you kidding me? This is a $5 part. So just like about 2 weeks ago, I left them a review on their Facebook. It was just 1 star. Like I just left this long list of things that had been kind of happening. That was kind of the last straw. Yeah. And on top of that, they charged me shipping for what should have been a free shipping gun.
It was like the coupon code things that just didn't go through.
Yeah, I actually had 2 of those. It was 2 orders in a row, and they eventually came out and said, "Yeah, we don't do free shipping on blowout guns." And I'm like, "Well, it's over $80, so why not?" Like, "Oh, we don't make any money." Like, it doesn't say it anywhere.
Yeah, that's weird. I've had other companies do that outside of the airsoft realm too, and like, I always eventually argued it, brought it to PayPal, and got my money back.
I can get that on the business side of things, but it needs to be stated better.
Oh no, I agree. Like if you're gonna have that policy, but you need to tell people that's your policy. You can't just all of a sudden be like, "No, we charged you anyway because it was a sale."
Yeah, absolutely. Review like 2 weeks ago, and they actually contacted me. They tried to call me like 3 times. And,
okay. I mean, that's pretty positive. Some companies won't even do that.
Yeah, it was really nice. I was kind of amazed they actually tried to reach out to me, and they explained that we don't do this on blowout guns, and we're sorry we charged you shipping on this one. We'll refund it. It was like $7 or something.
So this is a phenomenon that might have happened to Andrew. That's happened to me once. So like if you have a bad experience with a company, it kind of depends on who you are. So like if they know who you are just a little bit, and they see that you leave like a 1 or 2 star review, they'll immediately get a hold of you and go like everything your way, fix it up, send it back, make you happy, change that 2-star to a 5-star, make a YouTube video, give us a shout out. Like that's what they want. But like if you are some small time airsofter, like literally just a guy that just plays, and you leave a 1-star review, they may not even call you, So it kind of depends on who you are. I would assume a little bit. Maybe I could be wrong. But, one guy who leaves a bad review on Airsoft GI who has like 22,000 subscribers leaves a bigger dent than one guy who's just a guy who plays Airsoft,
I mean, I've seen that in things outside of Airsoft where I know I kind of mentioned earlier, I got myself into the PC building hobby, and I'm kind of in that realm now. I'm actually planning my first build, and I realized how freaking expensive all that crap is. But, that's a story for another time, but I know in that hobby just from seeing the popular YouTube channels and the people who are popular on forums and things like that, where, they get sponsorships out the ass from companies where they just get free parts thrown at them to put it in a build for a YouTube video, so it's exposure. But I also know whenever they have problems, they are 100% contacted, answered, dealt with, and sent a replacement part right away.
Yeah.
And like in those videos, they brought out themselves that while it's an amazing gesture for the company, and they can't thank the company enough for treating them so well, they have to throw in a question if they treat the rest of the customers this way. And that topic hasn't brought up. I have no idea if it happens in Airsoft, at least not to the Airsoft's one of those things where even popular airsofters aren't too popular. There are a couple really big ones, and after that, it kind of drops off pretty largely. So I don't know how much it really is a factor in airsoft, but in general, it does 100% happen.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, like I said, like Ryan said, I don't know how much it happens in airsoft. I've just heard stories where, like, you have a popular airsofter go. So say you have a popular unnamed airsofter go to a very big Milsim event, and then like he does something retarded that breaks the rules. The Milsim event won't do anything to the guy who's the popular airsofters. They'll just try to keep the other guys quiet, the affected party. I won't mention the name of the person, but I think Ryan knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I know it happens in Airsoft, I don't know to what degree. So, like, Andrew's probably the most popular Airsoft tech on YouTube, maybe Brain Exploder, but I don't even know if he does a lot of tech work. I think he just does, like, some small stuff here and there. So, like, Andrew has these YouTube videos about doing tech work, has a decent outreach of, like, 23,000 subscribers or so. I mean, if he wanted to, he could slam GI pretty easily,
Well, thank you for calling me popular.
More popular than me.
Well, dude, you've got still a ton of subscribers yourself. I mean, before I knew you, I still saw your videos on YouTube, so you've got a decent amount of reach there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on it, but it's kind of like a slow crawl at this point, and that's how I feel like it's going to be until I reach whatever number is my maximum.
I just stopped posting YouTube videos altogether. I don't even have a reason for it. I just haven't, given myself the time to sit down and make and edit a video. I still have gameplay video on my computer from 6 months ago, from 9 months ago, from a year and a half ago that's just sitting there unedited in a folder that says Airsoft videos that I just haven't touched.
Well, I know how you feel there. I've got an 8 terabyte drive sitting here that's about half full of Airsoft videos. I'm probably... Yeah, it's insane. But, it's time to develop a YouTube channel, definitely. And I just happened to post a video of it was a Warrior L96 or something a long time ago, and it just took off. It was kind of by accident, so just never got what's going to happen.
Oh, I have the best story. Okay, so my YouTube channel, again, kind of like what I was going off of. I used to post videos fairly frequently. I was getting subscribers pretty quickly, and then I just kind of stopped all of a sudden. But the things I will never understand. So my videos, I mean, the view count ranges from 1,000 to 30,000, depending on whatever the video was, where some of them get really popular and some of them don't necessarily. But my most popular video, the very first YouTube video I ever made, I was 11 years old. I had gotten my first airsoft gun. It was a Spring 1911 by Unicorn Hobby Company, or Hobby Company, UHC, whatever the UHC stands for. It was like a $13 Spring Airsoft 1911. I made a review on it as an 11-year-old with just this high-pitched, squeaky voice, a bad camera I held in my hand as I did it. 59,000 views with like a 95% like ratio. And it puts all my other videos to shame. And I don't understand why. There's literally not a single thing about that video that is informative or attractive or doesn't make your ears bleed. It completely demotivated me from making any other video ever. I taken it down since then because I didn't take it down. I made it private because it's a terrible video. It's terrible.
Dude, can you send that to me?
It was by far my most popular video.
You need to make it unlisted and send us the link.
Oh, oh my god, I might, maybe later.
That'd be fantastic.
You guys should see some of my unlisted videos. It'd probably scare you a little bit.
Yeah, see, whenever I started making YouTube videos, I had a small channel that I'm not going to actually name because some people might go try to find it and
If you send it to me, I will post it everywhere.
Wait, did you have a video? Wait, did you have a channel before you did Airsoft, or was it a different Airsoft channel?
No, it was a different Airsoft channel.
I know that one. I'm still subscribed to that.
Yeah, I know you are.
Ah.
Because like because like you and I learned how to tech at like the same time.
We were both on Airsoft Society like at the exact same time.
So like we'd both be troubleshooting the same issue, and then like this one tech that was like helping us out a bunch, he was from like Norway. He would comment on each of our videos, and he'd be like, "I'm just gonna let you guys figure this one out," with like a winky face. But like, you know, before my TheAirsoftTech channel, I had that channel, and that one wasn't like silly or anything. Like I actually did like tech stuff, but it was really really basic tech stuff. And then I went over to like make a new channel, and that channel I actually used a nice camera. I used editing software. I actually tried to script some stuff, and so there really isn't a bad video on my channel. There's more or less just like progressively getting better in terms of like video editing quality and like video production quality. But like if you go to my very first video, it's not like cringeworthy, but it's just not like glorious. You know, it's kind of like somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Still something. I mean,
honestly, like the best advice you can give people who's doing YouTube is to just get something out there, and that's about it. And that's basically like.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm curious now. I'm gonna go on YouTube and see how long ago was the last video that I actually uploaded.
Like
well,
20 years ago.
After you do that, we're gonna have to switch over to questions. So.
All right, 8 months ago.
Dang.
So it goes 8 months ago. The second last one was 11 months ago. And then there's a bunch of them that are just within a year. Yeah, I haven't done a lot in a long time.
You gotta get back on things here.
I should. You need motivation to just start doing stuff.
Alright, questions.
Yes, let's switch over to questions.
Questions. Alright.
So, let's just go around the table and we can pick our own questions and go from there, I guess.
This guy named Andrew Kiva Sales, he posted this picture of Spock here. Actually, it's a great
no way!
I think the only person I know who's more of a Star Trek fan is probably my dad, but that might be
Oh no, there's no competition, man. I win that one. Who wants to go first here? What question are we taking?
You want to go first, Andrew? You're the guest.
Sure. I was going to try to answer Hunter Ward's question. Yes, Hunter Ward, I'm saying your name on the internet. You're welcome. I was going to try and answer this, but
that's all he wanted.
I actually don't have a good answer for it. He's got a ASR25 35 gram piston, shooting 440 FPS with 2s and an M4 length barrel, and not really getting any kind of joule creep. You guys got any input on that at all?
So let's see here. 35 gram piston, shooting 440 with a .20 on average.
I had a kind of a similar setup with my old ASR25, and I got really good joule creep and range out of that thing. So.
Yeah. So the 35 gram piston shooting 440 FPS with .2 on average. Barrels 360. I know with joule creep, there's. I was talking to Andrew about it earlier. We were waiting for Ryan to fix his microphone issue.
For like a whole freaking hour, but anyway.
Yeah, legitimately, it was like a 50-minute long. It was good though. But one of the things I know is that I've been doing a lot of testing with joule creep before I kind of went to college and stopped doing teching for a while, and I have learned more and more of the factors that contribute to joule creep. But at the same time, I don't have an all-encompassing an all-encompassing answer to tell you. I cannot give you a complete list of factors that affect joule creep, but I can give you a good amount of them. For example, I know for barrel length, actually longer barrels give you more potential for joule creep. However, in order to joule creep, you need to have an excess of volume, and it's much harder to have an excess of volume in a longer barrel as opposed to a shorter barrel. So that's why if you have an HPA gun, for example, let's take my Polar Star that I have in my room. If I put a longer barrel in that and do nothing else, my FPS jumps out about 40 in my specific setup. And that's not joule creep, that's just proper voluming. And then if I take my short barrel and I go from a .2 to a .4, I only lose 15 FPS. No, sorry, that's the long barrel. And then the short barrel, I lose about 65. So the short barrel is still creeping, but it's not creeping nearly as much as the long barrel. And that's because one of the theories about joule creep is that when you are using a BB that more effectively takes advantage of the air volume you have to apply to it, it has a much longer time to accelerate in the barrel, which means it can reach a higher maximum energy. Not necessarily velocity, but a higher maximum energy when you do a kinetic energy calculation. And it makes sense if that theory is correct. Having a longer barrel would also give it more time to accelerate, which would compound the idea behind that theory. However, like I said earlier, you need an excess amount of air volume with a light BB. That way, a heavier BB can take advantage of the air volume you had. And the longer your barrel is, the more amount of air volume you need in order to have an excess. So longer barrels they offer more potential for creep, but they're harder to get to creep. Now, in Hunter's specific example, that might kind of be it. I mean, so he has a 35-gram piston, so decently, not over heavy, but like a decently hefty piston. He's not using like an SHS 15 tooth. 440 FPS with a .2 on average, so I'm assuming you have roughly an M130, M140 equivalent spring. It's also an ASTkilo23, so you actually probably have a higher rated spring because it needs to cover more area in the elongated gearbox. And then the 363, so an average length barrel. So about I still have an average of the same joules. I think it's about 1.8 or so, but I know for a fact that I'm not able to creep. Just pains the thoughts that's being appreciated. So I know in general for AEGs it's a lot harder to creep, kind of like what I said earlier. On the basis that you need an excess of air volume, it's much easier to have that with an HPA tank attached to your gun, where you literally have a giant excess of air volume sitting there waiting to be released, and you release it in increments as opposed to creating the volume in the cylinder, and you're limited by the size of the cylinder. So ASTkilo23 offers an elongated cylinder, so you should have more volume than the average AEG. You're using an average length barrel, so I would assume that you're over voluming it with .2s. You definitely should be. So one possible answer for this, based on your comment, it looks like you should be over voluming. I mean, not over voluming, sorry, joule creeping. However, since you're not, there's two explanations. First, if you jump right from a .2 to a .4, you might think of it like if you were to graph the amount of air volume you have versus the amount of air volume that's being used. It's going to be a bell curve. It's not going to be a linear graph or an exponential graph. It's a bell curve. Yeah. So eventually you reach a point where, let's say, I have an air volume for a .3 gram BB, but I'm using a .2. That means if I go from a .2 incrementally until I get to .3, I will joule creep a little more at each step. But once I get past a .3, I'm now under voluming, and I will no longer joule creep because I can't use that weight BB with my system effectively. So if your system is over volumed for, let's say, a .32 gram BB, you might be past your limit for joule creep in your specific system. Now, another thing that can happen is that depending on your bucking to nozzle seal, a lot of times builds will leak there, especially when you have a higher pressure spike. Pressure spikes can be influenced by the mass of the BB as well as the spring in your compression, how tight your compression is in your piston cylinder system. So let's say you have a mating issue between your air nozzle and your bucking lips, which is allowing the PSI spike to influence a leak, which will then leak off the excess air volume that's not needed, and it will essentially negate any joule creep you would have had because it's not using the air volume that you had. It's only using, it's using less of the air volume. I mean, and like going off that example, that boils down to that's one specific area that I see most common where the leak is, but just a leak in general could be another explanation for why you're not seeing any creep.
Yeah, so whenever I have these FPS and joule-related issues, I always try to start at the most basic thing, work my way up, because like if you have an FPS issue, it could be a number of things. But say you have like a stock gun, and it's having this crazy FPS issue and you can't figure it out, I always start from the most basic and go to the most advanced, because that way you're kind of building fundamentals and you're going all the way up until you reach some sort of pinnacle, and then you're like, okay, I'm out of solutions, where you're like, okay, I figured it out halfway through this, step up the pyramid. So when it comes down to jewel creeping, there are, like Ryan was talking about, so many different types of variables that I actually don't know all of them. I know quite a few of them, but I don't know all of them. So when you jewel creep, you have a ton of variables going for it. You have to look at each variable. You have to start from the most basic and go to the most advanced. So usually when I build a jewel creep build, I'll start at the most basic kind of jewel creep build that there is. I have a super short barrel with a full cylinder, maybe bore up, maybe not, with a not so weighted piston, and see what I get. And then I'll go up from there. So like if your piston's super weighted, like yours is, 35 grams, that's definitely heavier than the stock one. Then what you're going to start creating is an issue where you might have to check your spring strength. Because if you have a really, really, really weak spring, like say an M110 or M120, not saying that you in the specific case do, but say you have that kind of spring, that can actually slow down the acceleration of your piston. So you're creating an issue where you're not getting the maximum amount of energy that you have stored up right there. You're basically not reaching maximum potential with that weight in the piston. So there are so many different variables to go from, but my best advice is to start from the basic and go to the most complex until you hit some point where you're kind of like, aha, and you figure it out.
Well, that was an amazing set of answers. Hunter, if you can't figure it out, then hit me up later, but that should give you a good start.
I should appreciate the comments on Hunter's post. The last one is like, yep, my bad, you're cursed. It's bad luck, you're terrible tech, compression's off. Like, it's a bunch of like joke responses.
But actually, one of the things that you should do is, my first piece of advice was about basic and go complex. But one thing that you should do is actually calculate your air volume. You'd be surprised. You could be you may not be under voluming, but you could not be actually truly going well over that threshold that requires a good jewel creep.
Yeah, so going off,
usually like a proper voluming for getting your maximum FPS potential is usually like 1.5 to 1. I know Ryan knows a lot more about this than I do, but I'm pretty sure that's about where it is, 1.5 to 1.8 over 1. So basically you want the cylinder to have a little bit more air than is in the barrel so that it doesn't just undervolume. So you just compensate for the weight of the BB and your adjustments in the BB weights. Because you're coming with 0.2, and then you throw a 0.28 in, you now might be undervolume. So you should really actually calculate your barrel or your cylinder to barrel ratio so you can actually get an idea. Now when I overvolume, I usually start around 2.0 to 1 and go from there. And if I want to do more, 2.5 to 1, but it just depends.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I started to think about that after I stopped talking. I was going off the idea that barrel diameter matters, in the sense that when you calculate your volume, if you have a 6.01, well, it matters in two ways. First, a 6.08 diameter, or I'm not even talking about wide bores. I'm just talking about like a 6.08, like most stock guns, compared to a 6.01 at the same length. The 6.08 has more volume because it is a more open area inside the barrel that the BB sits in that you have to fill with air to push the BB. However, the 6.08 also allows for more air to bleed around the BB and not influence the pressure buildup of the BB as it travels down the barrel, because there is just literally more of a gap between the BB and the inner wall of the barrel, so more air can escape around the BB as opposed to pushing behind it. This is why, if you're in a controlled setup and you do nothing but change your inner barrel from a 6.08 diameter to a 6.01 diameter of the same length, you should see an increase in FPS. Even if it's very minimal, you will see an increase, because there is less air being wasted, essentially, in pushing the BB down the barrel.
Yeah, so this is where you get the hypothesis of the BB riding on the top of the barrel from an air cushion below. Yeah, like it's a hypothesis. I don't believe it's in the theory category yet, because though it's hypothetically logical and it's congruent with other concepts of physics that we have, I don't think that's something that we can easily observably test, and so I don't think it's confirmed.
No one's done it yet. So.
Yeah, because we just can't. I don't think we have the stuff to do it yet, really.
I mean, I'm sure if someone just creates a clear plastic barrel and a high-speed camera, you can probably see if the BB, like shoot a black BB down it and see if it rides on top and just do multiple tests. But either no one has the equipment for it, or no one has the money to spend on the equipment for it, or no one's had the interest to go out. It's probably a mix of the above three.
Yeah, keep in mind that most airsofters are 21 and below. Therefore, we're three things. We have very little amount of time, we have very little amount of money, but we have tons of energy.
So we'll talk about it for days, and then we'll go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that kind of the tradition of the internet anyway?
Pretty much, yeah. So I guess that kind of does that question. And I know, Ryan, I think you wrote a guide on how to jewel creep, or a more comprehensive written guide for those who are read the
more interested in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could say.
So I have an article on Airsoft Society as well as AirsoftTech and Q&A file section on jewel creeping. I have two, though. I have one that's specific to HPA guns, and I know there was a lot of drama a while when I wrote it about banning HPA guns at fields because they hurt more. And I was like, no, they don't hurt more. It's because field owners don't understand the concept of joules or energy. All they know is FPS. And talking about this from a pure physics standpoint, FPS is a velocity. It is a measure of the speed at which an object travels, and it does not take into effect the size, shape, or mass of the object. So, for example, I can throw a paper plane at you and a rock at you at the same FPS, but they both obviously carry very different energies. And the difference is that with HPA guns as opposed to AEGs, because, like I explained earlier, they jewel creep much easier. A lot of people will, let's say a field has a chrono rule. You have to chrono at 400 with 0.2s. That's the chrono rule. They do that so they get everybody on the same constant. They put them on a certain weight BB, and they test all the guns to make sure they're all even. However, with HPAs, because they have a much higher, a much greater amount of excess air when they're shooting, because they're not going to use 0.2s when they play, they only use at the chrono. When they play, they go back to their 0.32s, their 0.36s, and because the HPA gun has the volume required, or the air required, to properly volume the 0.36, and AEGs won't, if you chrono both systems with 0.2s, and then switch both systems to 0.36s, the HPA will be shooting at a much higher joule rating than the AEG, simply because it has the capacity to joule creep much greater than the AEG does. And this is a concept that field owners don't understand. They're not as technically inclined, I guess, to comprehend that it's not the FPS that matters, it's the energy the BB carries that matters. And I had a whole write-up explaining that and explaining why it's true and how it works. And I mean, I own multiple AEGs and 2 HPA guns, and I can just do testing and post it for you if people still don't really believe the physics behind it. But that was a big thing a while ago. Fields are just banning HPA guns simply because they didn't understand that it's joules that matter, it's not FPS, and that HPA guns behave differently in terms of joules.
So this is pretty much where the myth of HPA guns having more range and accuracy came from. This is exactly it. Because they
it's part of it.
BB much harder, or much more efficiently, energy speaking wise. And then they would run a pretty decent barrel setup, and they'd run really heavy BBs, and then they would just shoot out to like 250, 260 feet. And then everybody's like, oh my gosh, they have magic range compared to everybody else, even though they have the exact same pop-up chamber and barrel. But it's just easier to achieve that kind of range with HPAs. And myths die hard, so it's going to take a long time to kill all of these myths. But the HPAs hurting more than AEGs has pretty much been killed. I haven't been to a field in a long time that said they banned HPA guns. Usually they just turn lock you, or they just spot check with 0.3 or 0.32 BBs and see what you're shooting at.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, I think we've beat that horse to death pretty well.
Yeah, let's switch to a different question.
That was a good topic on it. I know, who was it? Austin Freeman asks, what is the best teching achievement you have earned?
Hugging Jacob Bell.
That's a pretty good one.
Meeting Austin Freeman. That was a better one.
Actually,
hold on. Jacob actually answered it. I'm at the liberty to answer for both Ryans in advance, and he posted the DSG Dream Team patch.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
I love those patches. I'll wear them out place. Like I have it on my hat. Like I have it on this like Condor multicam hat, and I'll wear that when I'm at college sometimes. I've actually had people stop me. Like I've had 2 people stop me and be like, "Hey, I'm an airsofter. I've seen that on like different Facebook pages. Where can I get it?" And I was like, "Sorry, man,
You can't.
Yeah, there were like 20 or 30 made, and all of them are owned by like 10 or 12 people.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny. The airport where I go to college, a lot of people play airsoft, so it's pretty common to have those kind of conversations. But
Fisher, we can hear you, just by the way.
Yeah, I figured. I was just quick. I had to talk to someone in the room.
That's cool. I had my cat jump in my lap earlier, so you could probably hear her purring in the mic.
Not as much, probably.
Anyway, Fisher, what's your most amazing achievement in airsoft?
Well, if I don't count Jacob's answer for me of the Dream Team patch, achievement. I don't know if I have the most amazing achievement, but I do love whenever I go to a field and I just bring out my DSG and start using it, and all the heads turn all of a sudden, and it's like, what's going on? That's always fun.
By far the best way to have publicity is just run a DSG that shoots higher than 50 rounds a second.
Yeah, I have. One time I brought out my DSG. I semi-locked it with the Spectre, and I taped macro line to the motor grip, and I started to play, and everyone thought I was using a Polar Star, until one kid realized the line wasn't connected to anything, and he was confused. Like, wait, how is your gun shooting right now? And I was like, oh, it's an AEG, and they were all so confused. That was a pretty fun time.
Oh, I bet. Let's see. Greatest achievement. I'm tempted to say shooting Anthony in the face, but I don't know, that doesn't really count. To touch on that again, Anthony always, my buddy Anthony, buddy I play with all the time, he always raves about this stupid, how was it, a KWA SR10 I had probably 4 or 5 years ago. We were playing on the field, it's called the Jungle in Marysville here. It was like a half open field. The field section of it is like probably 600 or 700 feet across, and it's huge. This KWA SR10, it didn't have a lot of work. It was shooting like 490 with 2s. It had a tight bore barrel, flat hop bucking from Modify, and a MOSFET. That was really about it. I didn't do anything else to it. And this thing with 3 shot like 300 feet. It was just stupid. And so we had this group of guys in the other team, and they were probably about 250, 300 feet away, running horizontally across the field. I was able to semi-auto put rounds in front of them and took out like a column of 4 or 5 guys as they ran across the field. Biggest achievement is that.
Oh, I have a story similar to that. Oh, sorry.
Like, whenever my friend, like, I have a friend, kind of same situation that you have there, Andrew, where, you know, they play airsoft together with me a lot, and so, like, we'll go play at our local field, and, you know, he runs a FAMAS, and, like, he runs one of the cyber gun FAMASs, which is just, it's an
Really?
Yeah, it's a really cool gun. I've teched it up. It's got, like, 16-to-1 gears, a 12 TPA motor, M130 spring, and, like, this really awesome R-hop setup to it with, like, a Prometheus barrel. And it'll shoot out, like, 280 feet. It was just amazing. And so, like, him and I have my ICS M16, and then he runs that from Oz, and it's, like, the same situation that you're talking about. There's, like, this big open field, and we can just shoot halfway across it. And, like, nobody can cross it. And as sidearms, we'll run, like, I'll run my RDP, or I'll run my SEMA Glock, so when people get up close, it's just, like, a full auto spray of, like, sub 300 FPS guns. But him and I running together is a lot of fun, because we have, like, the 2 furthest shooting guns in the entire field, and it's just a blast.
Yeah, so I have a story extremely similar to that. I kind of cheated in the fact that it's an HPA gun, not an AEG, but there's like two outdoor fields that are within like an hour and a half drive of my house, and one of them hosts a lot of statewide ops throughout the year. And I went to one of the bigger ones a year and a half ago. No, last year. I went to one of the bigger ones last year, and I have an old A&K Masada that I repurposed. I put a rail system on it. I threw an original SMP system into it, and then just threw an R-hop in the barrel and tuned it, let it go. But I was also, when I went to this op, I was sent a bunch of different weighted BBs from a company called BLS, which they're selling them now, but this was before they were selling them. They wanted to have different people beta test them and test them out, make sure they were consistent, they were feeding properly, there wasn't discrepancies in the weight, and things like that. So I took up all these baggies of them, and I loaded a mag up with the .45 gram BBs they had sent me. They were white polished BBs that were non-bio, so it was at the time, I think, the first company to do it, and then all of a sudden, like, 3 more companies came out with white heavyweight BBs, like, at the same time. So I'm assuming there are probably 1 or 2 manufacturers for them, and they all got outsourced. But so I threw the mag in, and all of a sudden, I was completely under-hopping my R-hop, obviously going from like a .3 to .45. So I started just my R-hop. I had to have been shooting minimum 340 feet, completely outranging. I mean, I'm the best tech in the area, so if I didn't make the gun, it doesn't shoot more than like 260, 270 feet. So I already have, like, all my guns already outranged everyone else is at the field, and then I went from shooting 290 to about like 340 by popping a different mag. So there was a sniper tower in the center of the town at the field, and then the town extends in this little area, but the edge of the town, it's all wooded, a lot of trees and bushes, and there's different structures, and then as you get deeper in the woods, the structures go away and it turns into like just leaves. So I was lying down at least 100 feet into the wooded area. So the sniper towers could not see, the people in the sniper tower in the town could not see me at all. In the town, it's got to be, the sniper tower, which is on the edge of the town, has got to be 200 feet from the wooded area. So I'm between 300 and 320 feet away from the people in the tower, and they're elevated. So they're like sitting 20 feet, 25 feet in the air, and I'm lying down on the ground. So I'm going against gravity too, and I'm sitting there pinging them off one by one. It's like I'm at like 5 times on my scope. It was the most fun I've ever had because they had no idea where it was coming from, and when people finally figured out where I was, their BBs, they'd shoot at me, and the BBs just dropped in front of me, like a good 50 feet in front of me. I couldn't do anything about it. And it was the most ridiculous I've ever felt playing Airsoft because they legitimately could not do anything about it, and I was just sitting there killing people.
That's the best feeling in the world.
See, I love having the best gun on the field. It's pretty great.
I totally get you there with having like those super ridiculous long range guns. Like,
oh, it's so much fun.
There's a lot of guys in the area that play, and I work on just about everyone's gun on our team at Force Fire Airsoft here. Yeah, and so you got a few guys that run bolt actions, and they have a 300 to 350 foot range roughly. And then you got the rest of us that run AEGs, and our range is probably anywhere from 150 to 250 feet, more or less. But like you get these guys, they're all snipers. You get 3 of them on a team. You catch them because everyone else on the other team has a 150 foot range. These guys range 3+ feet. Saying this is so much fun.
Yeah, that is definitely the next gun I'm going to build is that. SR25, the classic army one I was telling you about, where I had Charlie hop it for me, had to have been 4 years ago, and I haven't done anything after that. I got the barrel back from him, I didn't even install it yet, it's like sitting next to the gun waiting to be installed, and I haven't done anything at all. I put that build off for so long.
Come on, man, you gotta finish that, it's gonna be amazing.
I really do.
Or you could send it to me,
Well, I might already be sending you two DSGs that are worth about 1.3k each to have some fun with.
Do it soon.
I'm left out here, guys. Where's mine?
I need to sell my Spectre before I send them to you, though.
Do it.
I want to replace it.
I said they sell pretty quick.
Yeah, so I've heard. I'll get on that next week.
Have time for any more questions, or?
There was that one about PME.
Yeah, let's answer one more, and then I think we'll have to call it. 'Cause it's like 10:30 right now.
Yeah, it's getting a little late. I found it. So Jake McKay said that you should all explain PME. What is it? What causes it? And what can you do to prevent it in custom builds?
All right.
So I have an entire write-up on this as well. So I'll let someone else explain it this time. But if you want, like, some people are better listening. Some people are better visually. Some people are better just reading. They can read over and over again. In the Airsoft Society and on AirsoftTech and Q&A, the file section, I have a guide on how to make a high-speed AEG, and within that guide, I explain PME. So if you want a written form in front of you, go read that. And then, if not, I'll let Ryan or Andrew explain it.
So,
I'll let you go for it. Yeah.
I'll say a couple words and then I'll kind of pass it off to you. But with these kind of concepts, you always have to pin down exactly what you're talking about, because these things can get complex pretty quick, but they're actually pretty simple if you know how to kind of juggle the different ideas that you're working with. So PME stands for premature engagement, and all that means is when your drivetrain is resetting to pickup tooth position or beyond before the piston is ready for that as well. So basically your sector gear rotates and makes a full cycle before your piston can even make a full cycle to get to return position. The classic sound that this creates is kind of like this just awful grinding sound, and as soon as you hear it, it sounds like an air jam because it kind of mimics the same symptoms. So you hear this like really loud grinding sound, and you hear it in high-speed builds, you hear it in setups where you have a massive amount of piston resistance, and so both of those scenarios can cause them. But usually premature engagement is associated with high speed because it's an induced concept. Normally it's thought of as an induced concept, but sometimes it can be thought of as a concept that pre-exists. So the induced concept is done through high speed, and the pre-existing concept is done through just having a lot of gearbox shell resistance, which can even happen in stock guns, believe it or not. So you run like a stock gun on an 8.4 volt, it sounds pretty rough, sounds pretty nasty. You stick an 11 volt on it, and now you have premature engagement.
To kind of to put that into casual English that the rest of us can understand. Basically, your gears are moving too fast for your piston, and it's not good for the teeth on the piston or the gears, teeth gears, whatever. I remember on my first high-speed gun a while back. It was an ICS MP5. Had high-speed gears, high-speed motor, and a really soft spring. It was like I think an SP90 or something. I was shooting like barely 300 feet per second, and I plugged a big old 10.8 volt into that, and it was a really bad idea. It sounded like crap, and it kind of destroyed the piston. So it cost me like 3 pistons before I figured out, oh yeah, the mechanical crap going on here. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the gist of it. There really isn't a whole lot more to it, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a complicated problem with the simple, it's a simple problem with a complicated explanation, because different things can cause the issue to occur, and you can take different routes in terms of trying to fix it. So, for example, if I have a system that's hitting premature engagement, let's say I have an M110 spring, a 14 TPA motor, and 13-1 gears. That would definitely hit premature engagement as long as I'm building it right. Sorry, I just got a notification on Facebook about the group, and I just read it quickly. So in the setup, in order to fix this, I can either slow down the sector gear, so I give the piston more time, or rather I give the spring more time to push the piston back into place, or I can speed up the piston's movement by installing a stiffer spring. So generally, what people do is they will install a stiffer spring to speed up the piston and make the piston accept the rounds per second that the sector is trying to deliver. The other way to go about, like the side effect of this is why I said it's a simple explanation but a complicated solution. Because now you install a stiffer spring, so you're also shooting at a much higher FPS than you previously were. And for some people, they don't want that. They want to limit themselves. Let's say you have a 350 FPS limit and you're shooting at 440 because you had to install an M140 spring or an M130 spring. This is where short stroking comes in. So now you can short stroke your sector down and your piston down to lower that FPS without changing the spring, So then the spring and the secondary gear are working in unison to avoid PME, and the short stroking is what you do to tune the FPS back down where you want. So that's one example of a solution to premature engagement, because like someone asked about it, so I don't know if you have a problem with it right now, or you just wanted to understand more about it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to make a video on premature engagement because, like Ryan was saying, there are people who can read through literacy, there are people who can learn through just listening, there are people who can learn through watching. I mean, if you think about it evolutionarily, we've been listening a heck of a lot longer than we've been reading. But, like, that's the reason why some people are better lecture learners than reading learners. But, so I should make a video on this. But, basically, the threshold that you, like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into premature engagement. That if your system's operating optimally, with an M120, you shouldn't get premature engagement. You should probably hit, you'll probably hit premature engagement with an M120 around 45 rounds a second. And you'll probably hit premature engagement with an M130 by around 50, 52 rounds a second. So about increments of 5 to 6, sometimes 7, is about what you're looking at. So with a 40 RPS build, at minimum, I'm running an M120. Sometimes I'm running an M130 with 1-2 short strokes.
Kind of add to the possible fixes there. As we said, PME tends to go for high-speed builds. If you want to turn your speed down a little bit, just plug a lower power battery into it, and that tends to fix your problem right there. So,
yeah,
you want to play at a higher speed. Obviously, do the previous things and see how it works out.
Yeah, and keep in mind that piston resistance does play a huge role. So, like, if you have a cylinder, like a compression setup where you don't have any lubricant between the cylinder and the O-ring on the piston head, then what tends to happen is this rubbing concept where you build up a lot of friction. Friction equals heat. Heat kind of slows a lot of stuff down. So, at least this kind of concept. So, if you're building up a lot of friction...
It's not the heat that slows it down. It's the friction itself is a force that slows it down. And the byproduct of that, and an energy standpoint, no longer talking about forces, is that it produces heat, because it represents the loss of energy, which goes back to the joule creep thing we were talking about earlier, where it's all about the energies and not about the FPS.
Yeah, see, this is why I stopped myself when I said that, because I'll say something like, or I'll be talking about, like, 11.1 volt lipos and discharge rating in a YouTube video, and then someone will stop me and say, like, well, wait up a second, you didn't talk about capacity, so it's kind of, one of those things. But anyway, yeah, the friction is what slows you down, so when you have this friction, it'll slow the piston reset time, and that's a huge factor. That can drop your premature engagement threshold a lot by like 5 or 7 rounds per second. So spring like an M120, where you should be getting a max of 40 rounds a second till you hit PME, you may actually hit it around 32 or 33. So you have to be really careful in your whole setup, and there's a bunch of tests that I can show you how to do on YouTube if you want to go check out those videos.
And I've seen that happen before. It happens with certain pistons and certain manufacturers of gearbox when you get different brands. Think about it like there is no, like, the different brands don't make it, they try to make it to the same spec or as accurate specs as possible. And by spec, I mean, let's say when you're designing the model in CAD to make the mold for the piston body, you have to input all of the dimensions and measurements yourself. So they're trying to get it as accurate as possible. But from manufacturer to manufacturer, if they're working off of different designs, they are going to be slightly different. And it only takes one gearbox manufacturer to make the piston rail slightly big, and one piston manufacturer to make the piston guide slightly small for them to be a compatibility issue between those two products. So I have seen it happen before where I've had to actually take a Dremel, for example, and widen the piston guide area to make it compatible with the gearbox I was using.
Hey, boys.
Yeah. And this is why tests exist, because we can do this work.
Alrighty.
I think that's pretty much going to be the end. We've been going for about an hour, at least hour 30, I'd say hour 40.
We always do that.
Yeah,
We pretty roll and go on.
But this gives us a lot of content. People like a lot of content, so you guys better be happy. Anyway, Andrew, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube. Channel is ASTkilo23. Or you can find me on Facebook.com/ASTkilo23.
So Andrew's bigger than both of us, so if you manage to find your way on either one of our channels to watch the video, there's a good chance you already know who Andrew is, but just in case you don't,
yep,
he is out there on the YouTubes and on the Facebook.
Yes, I exist.
But yeah, we're going to try to run this podcast once a week, every 2 weeks, somewhere around there. Picking up different guests as we go. We may have Andrew back some later time in the summer. Just don't know yet. I've got a lot of people asking me if they can join, and so I'm trying to make room for as many people as possible.
Alex Fong, you're not welcome, sir. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, as long as he has to send his guns to me to get them better, then he's not allowed on here. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Dirty Al. Can't even do his own tech work. What a shame.
As Ryan prints the shipping label to me.
I know. As I'm packing
Awesome,
my guns to send to you tomorrow.
It's been a lot of fun, and my ear is aching from having an earpiece and listening to you guys the whole time. So
I have that effect on people.
Yeah, we tend to talk quite a bit. So.
Gosh, the Ryans. What can you do?
Yeah. Imagine how our girlfriends feel.
Oh,
Shit.
Terrible. Bless them. They
You
put up
guys
with
have
us.
girlfriends? How do you pull that off?
Well,
I don't know.
mine actually does have airsoft occasionally, so.
You lucky bastard.
Yeah, she's kind of like a unicorn. I found her and I trapped her in a cage and I said, "You're only allowed to come out unless you play airsoft."
Forced it on her. Mine doesn't play, but she accepts it, so I'll take what I can get.
That's the first step. Anyway, we will see you guys some other time. So, yep, this was episode 11. Our guest was Andrew Sales, ASTkilo23. You can find him on YouTube.
If I may, before we go.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Hey
yeah.
guys, welcome back. I'm Prodigy from Airsoft Team Kilo, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
So, that was nostalgia. I had goosebumps on my forearms.
I haven't heard that in so long.
Well, I'm glad I could help.
That boy, too.
All right, I think that's about it for us guys. We've been rambling this outro for about 5 minutes now, even. So we're gonna head off. Ryan and I are definitely trying to do this more often this summer. We had a huge break in them because we just got busy. We both went to college with other priorities. Sadly, that came before Airsoft and before podcasts. So hopefully we can get back into it. This is gonna be it though for this one, and we will see you guys soon.
Yep, leave your comments in the comments below. Leave a question if you want. Maybe it'll be answered next time. But until then, we'll see you guys in the next podcast. Later.
Cool. Long and prosper.
See you guys.